Did 4 inmates from Alcatraz disappear at sea? Were they perhaps figments of a nation's collective imagination? Was my guest today one of them? Stick around and you might just find out the answers to these questions on this episode of Unsolved Mysteries. Solved! Welcome to the show, everybody. It is Thursday, so we've got a brand new mystery for you that we're definitely going to not fake solve. That means we're going to actually solve it. I am, as usual, Chad Kimmons, PhD in solving unsolved mysteries. My guest today is someone who's been on the show a couple of times, RJ Ensz. How are you, RJ?
Oh, doing well. I can't complain. Since I have been away, I have been studying the subtle art of solving mysteries.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
that's good.
In fact, I recently completed my PhD program, and I'm also now a PhD in unsolved mysteries.
And what caused you to decide to do that instead of journalism?
It was interesting. The response from my previous endeavor to solve mysteries was very positive. And ASU reached out to me and said that they would like to give me a scholarship if I wanted to continue my graduate school degree, which I have a master's degree in journalism, obviously. And they asked if I wanted to complete my PhD work in unsolved mysteries with them, and so I did that really fast.
Yeah, we've talked about on the show before. I think it's like 2 weeks or something. You just
yeah. I did it from my bed. It was an app actually. I just filled everything out on an app, and there you go.
2 weeks later, you get a what was it? It's a PhD or a degree or a diploma or whatever that is written in crayon that says you have a PhD in whatever field you chose.
Yeah, ASU's great.
Yeah, it's. I seriously think one of these days we're gonna get sued for making fun of Arizona State University so much.
And the reason we make fun of them is tremendously stupid. It has nothing to do with their quality of education. It has nothing to do with them at all.
I think the first time that I started making fun of them was because there was a bit on Family Guy where they were making fun of them. And I don't know, I just thought it was funny. So I started, well, at least on the podcast, that was the first reason.
I was going to say, I thought it went back farther than that to that you went to Always Right University, ASU. And I was like, that's not the right letters for that. And you just yelled ASU at me and walked away.
That is, listeners, this is not a joke. This actually happened. All right. Well, how much do you know about the 1962 escape from Alcatraz?
Not much. I mean, I know it happened, that it's a thing, right. But I've never studied too deep into it. Does The Rock, the film by Michael Bay, have anything to do with it?
I think they vaguely tried to tie in that Sean Connery's character was one of these guys that had escaped. So
you're saying Sean Connery escaped in 1962?
I think they were vaguely trying to tie that in without actually saying it in the film, yeah.
Interesting.
But no, Sean Connery himself did not escape from Alcatraz.
Whoa. Don't get ahead of yourself. I mean, let's really do research on this.
Yeah, I did the research. He was never imprisoned there, so he never had to escape from Alcatraz.
Yeah, because when he got out, he just went by his prison name and didn't change it to Sean Connery. More like John Flannery.
That was not one of the people that we're going to be talking about, but okay.
Well, I clearly don't know much about this.
Clearly.
Interesting. Right. I'm just saying 1962 was when the very first James Bond film came out. Is it a coincidence? Most definitely so, but All
right, well, let's just jump right in here. And since we've wasted enough time speculating already. So Alcatraz, the most inescapable prison this side of Azkaban, both of which were escaped from. Gary Oldman escaped from Azkaban in J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, and 3 Muggle inmates escaped from Alcatraz in 1962. So let's meet our contestants. First up, we have Frank Morris. Frank Lee Morris was born in Washington, D.C. Abandoned by his parents at age 11, he spent most of his formative years in foster homes. He was in and out of prison for most of his adult life, and he was finally sent to Alcatraz on January 20th, 1960. Next up, we have John and Clarence Anglin. These brothers began robbing banks in the early 1950s. After several failed attempts to escape from Atlanta Penitentiary in Georgia, they were sent to Alcatraz on January 10th, 1961. And finally, we have Alan West. First imprisoned for car theft in 1955, he was transferred to Alcatraz in 1957 after a failed attempt to escape from Florida State Prison. Those are your contestants, and now we're going to talk about the escape. So, in the December of 1961, all four of these, after the last one, the brothers were sent in. They were all assigned adjacent cells, and almost immediately they began to formulate an escape plan. The chief mastermind was the first guy, Frank Morris. And over the course of 6 months, they widened the vent ducts in their cells. And they did this with saw blades that they had found on the grounds, spoons from the mess hall that they had smuggled in back of their cells.
Who is leaving saw blades around a prison?
I wanted to know the same question. I could not find any answers to that question.
Hey, Joe, you think we should put these saw blades up? Nah, what's the worst that could happen? This is just a maximum security prison.
I like to imagine that they just, the guards would do it, just, for funsies. They'd just, take saw blades and go, sprinkle them around the grounds. And, let the inmates make shanks to kill each other with for entertainment. Which is, it's funny to think about, but it's actually not funny. It's actually very terrible. Yeah, and those people should be fired if they did that.
Yeah, incarceration is a very serious issue that we will not delve into on this podcast.
And if you don't, if you're worried about that one, this next one's going to really get you. They also fashioned an electric drill from the motor of a vacuum.
Jeez.
I don't know where they got a vacuum or how they got the motor back into their cell, but they masked the fact that they were widening it with cardboard that they had painted, the same color as the stone around it.
They got paint?
Yeah, they're there's all kinds of work jobs and stuff inside a prison. I think later they make you'll see, but they got the paint probably from the machine shop. And yes, they had access to a machine shop.
Yeah, I've seen Shawshank Redemption, so that doesn't surprise me as much.
It was a different time. They didn't, I think actually prisoners did have a lot more, not freedom, but freedom kind of back in those days. And here's the really interesting part: they covered the sound of all of this, they would do it at night during a music hour, when they were allowed to use musical instruments just to, lighten the mood. And they did it because Frank Morris had an accordion, but he was really bad at it. And he would play the accordion badly to mask the sound of them basically digging out of their cells.
Okay, so I'm just imagining that these guys are all basically the adult terrifying versions of Kevin from Home Alone. These just we'll take a vacuum cleaner and turn it into a power drill. The same way that Kevin terrorized the robbers.
They're heating the bars on their on their cell, so when the guards come by, they burn their hands. They got paint cans full of cement ready to swing down.
Yeah, I kind of want to see a movie of this escape made from that angle, that these guys are just basically like a comedy movie where it's all very slapsticky.
Right. Kind of Dennis the Menace meets
yes.
Kevin from Home Alone.
Yes, exactly.
Well, when the holes were wide enough, there was this unguarded utility quarter behind their cells, and they would slip into there to access the vacant top level of the cell block, and there they set up a workshop. They were able to mask their absence at night by using paper mache-esque heads that they had built. And they built these out of toothpaste, glue, cement, toilet paper, just anything they could find.
Yeah, sure. That's
And then they,
like of all the things they could attain, this is like the least on my list of how did you do that.
right. And then they used paint again from the machine shop to paint it to make it look realistic, and hair from the barbershop floor to make the hair look even more realistic. They would stuff like blankets and towels underneath the top, like the top blanket, to make it look like a body while they were gone. Anyway, so they used their workshop to build a raft and like life preservers and stuff, and they used over 50 raincoats and other things that they had stolen to build these. Now, this is... I don't understand why they use raincoats. Like, so he was just like, hey, you know how we're going to get out of here? We're going to build a raft, right?
Yeah.
Let me ask you something. What floats better than anything?
G. Frank. Geez. Raincoats. Probably.
Raincoats it is. You're right. It's absolutely raincoats. Let's go steal a shitload of raincoats, and then we'll build a raft out of them.
Well, yeah, because raincoats stop the rain, so they'll stop the water.
We'll stop the water from getting in. I don't know why they're all suddenly from New York. Like 50s style mobsters.
Yeah, I don't. All right. That's just the way it is. That's what I learned at ASU anyway.
Everybody who lived in the 50s was a 50s style New York mobster.
Yes.
Like, oh, they're from Texas? No, they're 50 styles New York mobster. If they lived in the 50s. My father, born in the 57, technically for 3 years, he was a 50 style New York mobster.
That's the rule.
So anyway, in June 11th, on June 11th, 1962, they started the escape. The Alan West, the fourth guy, was not able to make it because the cement that they had used to kind of shore up the hole and like mask it from being noticed had slightly hardened and narrowed the vent so he couldn't get through, and it like fixed the grate back in place, and by the time he was able to dig it back out, the other three were gone. So he went back to his cell. Like he got up to the roof, like burst onto the roof, and they were gone. So he went back to his cell and went to sleep. And then he was not persecuted. He was not prosecuted because he fully cooperated and provided like detailed plans of the escape. But Morris and the Anglins climbed from the surface corridor to the roof via a vent shaft, and then they descended 50 feet to the ground, climbed two 12-foot fences, and then used a blind spot in the prison's searchlights to inflate the raft. At around 10 p.m., they launched toward Angel Island to the north.
Okay. Let me stop you there. Let me ask a question. So it sounds like we know how this happened. So may I ask,
yes,
what is the mystery that needs solving here?
Did they actually escape or did they die?
I see. Okay.
The mystery is because, as you'll see later, the FBI pretty much just declared them dead in the water. But there have been sightings and all kinds of stuff since the escape. So the mystery is, are they still alive or did they die during the escape attempt?
Do we know what the weather was like?
I don't think it was too bad, but and I'll get more into this.
We are talking about the ocean, of course. So it's
right.
It's not easy.
Right. And I don't think it was like bad weather, but like I said, I'll get more into this here in a little bit. But somebody attempted to redo it, and on a clear day, and they said that the currents and the waves made it very difficult to row a raft like that. So,
okay.
But yeah, so they launched toward Angel Island to the north, and supposedly no one has ever definitively seen them since.
And there's none of the raft was discovered or anything like that.
Oh, it was.
Oh,
I'm getting
okay.
that part.
Continue.
Yeah. So the escape was discovered the next morning, and I think the warden was on vacation or something. I don't know why that was relevant, but it was in my notes. They launched a sea, land, and air investigation over the next 10 days. There was a paddle found off the south shore of Angel Island on June 14th. They found a wallet wrapped in plastic that had the names and addresses of the Anglins family and friends.
On Angel Island?
No, just like floating in the water between Alcatraz and Angel Island.
Okay.
There were remnants of a raft made out of the raincoat material that were found. It was found not far from the Golden Gate Bridge on June 21st. And then the day after that, a prison boat found a deflated life jacket made out of the same material about 50 yards off the coast of Alcatraz Island. Based on all of this, FBI officials, at least publicly, said that they were positive that the men had drowned, even though they never found any bodies.
Okay.
After Alcatraz was shut down in 1963, Alan West was transferred to McNeil Island in Washington and then back to Atlanta. He was released in 1967, only to be put back in prison the following year on grand larceny charges. And he was serving life imprisonment for stabbing another inmate to death, which they thought was race-related, when he died in 1978 of acute peritonitis. Peritonitis, yeah. Acute peritonitis. Sightings! There have been sightings. So in January 1965, the FBI investigated a claim that Clarence Anglin was living in Brazil. Apparently it was such they took it so seriously that they actually got a hold of the Brazilian government and sent FBI agents down there to try and find him. In 1967, a tipster called to report having seen Frank Morris in Maryland with a beard and mustache, but wouldn't provide any other information about it. The family members of the Anglins apparently received a bunch of unsigned postcards from time to time, or they would get postcards that had the name Jerry or Joe. The siblings, and they would also sometimes receive phone calls where there was nothing but breathing on the other end, and one of the brothers, Robert, said that he was like, oh, it might have been a hoax or people just playing pranks on us because, everybody knew that these guys had escaped. But he was certain that it was his brothers, calling just to make sure that everything was okay. And then, when the Anglin's father died in 1989, Robert said that two strangers in beards showed up to the funeral home, and he said that the men stood, standing in front of the casket for a few minutes crying, and then they just left. They were never identified, but again, he was pretty sure it was his brothers. In 1989, a woman called the Unsolved Mysteries tip line. You remember that show with Robert Stack? Is that his name?
Yeah, that show wasn't nearly as good as what we're doing.
No, it was not. They didn't solve Unsolved Mysteries. They just talked about it.
Lazy.
God damn it, Robert Stack. Tonight on Unsolved Mysteries. Anyway, somebody called the Unsolved Mysteries tip line in 1989 and reported that she had seen someone who met Clarence Anglin's description living on a farm outside of Marianna, Florida. And she described him perfectly, height, build, the color of his eyes. I think he had a scar somewhere that she described as well. In 2000, there was another Anglin sighting in Brazil that they investigated again. And in 2009, Deputy U.S. Marshal Michael Dyke told NPR that he still receives leads on a regular basis. So, thoughts so far. And then we'll get into, claims about further claims that not necessarily about sightings, but...
There's one thing that I learned at ASU, is that the principle of Occam's Razor. Are you familiar with this principle?
I was about to give you the definition of Chekhov's gun, and I was about to be like, I don't know why this applies. Occam's Razor is the simplest explanation is most often the true,
yes,
correct explanation.
And after hearing of the sheer ingenuity of these three apex geniuses, four, sorry, but only three escaped.
I would say three. I mean, if the one wasn't smart enough to make sure that his escape route was not closing up, then there's only three geniuses here.
That's fair. From the information I have right now, I'm gonna think that they drowned. I mean, I pulled up a map of that whole area of California, of Alcatraz, Angel Island, the Golden Gate Bridge, and, well, Angel Island is so much farther away than just, the pier. It's at least twice the distance. And, traversing the ocean by that kind of crappily made raft at nighttime can't be an easy task. And it sounds like the debris wash-ups and its locations shows they did not have a smooth sail. And that I suppose it's possible that some of them made it, some of them didn't. There's always that possibility. But I mean, it does sound to me like these people did not have a good night.
You are absolutely. I feel what you're saying. Well, let me get into a few more things here.
Okay.
And I promise I wasn't trying to set you up for anything. So there were some claims made. Frank Morris's uncle, I believe in 1987, I forgot to write down dates for these, said that he several times had visited Alcatraz and delivered envelopes of cash to guards as bribes to basically look the other way. That's neither here nor there, it might be how they got out. Doesn't really, lend anything to them surviving, though. There was another guy, I can't remember his name. I didn't write it down because I was like, oh, remember that name, because it was a really crazy name, but I didn't remember it. It was an inmate who said that he helped plan the escape, and they didn't debunk his story, but his story was widely disbelieved. They thought he was just trying to get notoriety, especially because this interview took place where he said this. The interview took place in the mid 80s, and he was paid $2,000 for the interview.
Okay.
So they were like, well, that's suspect because he was paid for it, On the episode of Unsolved Mysteries, they apparently tried to recreate this, and they determined that it was not possible. However, 10 years later, Mythbusters did it, and they decided that it was possible, but it would be very, very difficult. Now, chances are, they did it in probably perfect conditions.
Sure.
Whereas, and I think they did it at night, too, just, so that everything was, how they are. They do everything as close to possible as they can.
Mm-hmm.
But they probably would have also done it in perfect conditions so as not to endanger the people attempting to do this.
Right.
And then there was, I think it was West said that Clarence England's girlfriend was supposed to meet them on the shore, outside of San Francisco and drive them to Mexico. There were a bunch of other things that, people claiming that they had helped them or that this person was supposed to help them, but those were the ones that were the most believable. So, that all being said, what do you, now that you've got even more information.
You're gonna ambush me with another info drop after this?
No more info drops.
Okay. All right, so I think here's the way I see it panning out. There's two ways.
By the way, they're still alive. They're right behind me right now. There was another info drop.
Well, you've just ruined the whole show then.
No, I'm obviously kidding.
So I still believe the most likely answer is that they had a bad trip, and
it makes it sound like they were on drugs at the time. They had a real bad trip.
And that they are...
One of the Englund brothers started screaming about aliens.
And that they died in that, or some of them died in that. Or, I think there's a possibility that they escaped, but not by the methods that we know.
Okay.
Because
I think maybe
guards were taking money. So as soon as we know that there might be holes in this story.
Right.
You know, what if a bundle of raincoats and a wallet, you know, were thrown into the ocean as a red herring, you know, and that, you know, the guards had helped them escape. You know, if they were getting stacks of cash, because, you know, their idea is a pretty solid one, really. I mean, you know, you convince the guards with enough money to turn the other way. I mean, then you can convince them to do anything with enough money.
Right.
So you say, hey, you know, when you leave the island, you know, smuggle these prisoners out with you and discard this evidence along the way. That will look like they drown in the attempt, and then they're free for life. If the bait's taken, you know, it's...
Yeah.
I think that if they all survived, I think that's how they did it.
I would agree with that. Since there were bribes taken. I mean, that also helps to explain, like... Because I feel like if you're chipping away... And I also feel like the guards, while they were having music time, I feel like the guards probably would have been, you know, making their rounds to make sure that no funny business was going on. But if there's bribes, or if there's guards on the take, you know, maybe they see a guy with a power drill made from a vacuum and just go, didn't see anything, you know.
Right, they want to keep the money coming in.
I fully believe that at least one of the Anglin brothers survived.
Sure.
Just because, like, and it was probably Clarence, because, like, if only one of them survived, probably Clarence, because he was seen in Brazil twice. He was seen in Florida. You know, there was the whole thing about the family members receiving postcards and phone calls and all that. And, you know, I think maybe one of the brothers probably died, and, you know, but Chad, that doesn't explain why two men showed up to the funeral. Well, they've become really good friends with Frank Morris by this point. They all knew each other from, like, Atlanta State Penitentiary or whatever.
Yeah, or what about his gay lover? I mean, it could be anyone.
Or that. I think more than likely it was probably Frank Morris coming to pay his respects to his friend's dead father, but yeah, so are we officially saying that at least one of them survived?
Yeah,
probably because
I think at least one of them survived. I just don't think they actually got off the island on a raft.
Okay.
If they got off the island by, like, you know, of course it's possible, but I think it's much more likely that there was a guard that was a lot more in on it than the other guards.
Yeah, I would agree. And, you know, maybe the girlfriend did meet them. Maybe the guard took them to where they were supposed to meet Clarence's girlfriend, and she took them on to Mexico or wherever. Mm-hmm. You know? Because, I mean, the first sighting in Brazil was in 1965. The second one was in 2000. There's nothing to say that he didn't go to Brazil, come back up, go back down to Brazil, you know?
Sure.
He's probably down there hanging out with Hitler right now.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Because, you know, Hitler's definitely still alive. All right, well, there you have it, listeners. We have solved yet another mystery, the mystery of the Alcatraz escape back in 1962. Turns out that they did escape. They did not do it by raft, and at least one of the brothers survived. Probably all three of them. I mean, considering they didn't sort of go by raft, because... But anyway, the raft was red herring. So...
Yeah,
that's the solution.
I gotta say, solving these unsolved mysteries has been made a lot easier by getting my PhD.
Oh, yeah. I started trying to solve unsolved mysteries before I had my PhD. Couldn't do it. I didn't even know what an unsolved mystery was.
Yeah,
And then I got my PhD, and suddenly it's like, wow, people are idiots. How do they not know the answer to this?
Yeah, no, very, very effective program they have down there at ASU's mobile application PhD system.
Yeah. It turns out that when they give you when the courier shows up to give you the PhD, the degree, he himself is very knowledgeable in everything, and he's psychic, and he just beams all the information straight into your brain, and so that's how they can do it that way instead of making you go to classes.
I think you made that up, but maybe not. Maybe that's a mystery we can delve into.
The mystery of Arizona State University. Anyway, I'd like to thank my guest today, RJ Ensz, for being on the show again. Had a good time.
Absolutely.
And if you have a mystery you want us to solve on the podcast, or if you want to call us, not call us. Please don't call us. If you call me, I will be very worried because I've never given you my phone number. But if you want to tell us what a fantastic job we're doing, or whatever you want to do, just send us an email at mysteriessolvedpodcast, all one word, at gmail.com. And as usual, you can find us on Facebook at Unsolved Mysteries Solved, and on Twitter at UMS_podcast. Is there anything you're working on right now that you want to plug?
I think I'm going to get another degree from ASU.
Okay.
Our unofficial sponsor. And by unofficial, I mean they don't know we exist.
Probably, yeah. What degree are you thinking about getting?
I don't know. I was thinking maybe something, kind of following the same thread of Unsolved Mysteries. Something like, I don't know, alienology or something. Just more I can delve into this realm of the unknown, advanced occult mysteries.
I'll give you that, but if you go into alienology, you are not allowed back on the show again. We don't take crazies, okay?
You don't control me.
I mean, I could not let you back on the podcast. Anyway, so to wrap up, just in case you hadn't heard, don't question us or you will be put down. And just like to thank RJ again for being here. And
always a pleasure.
Thank you, lovely listeners, for listening. And we'll see you next week.
See ya.
Shut up, guys. This is why I don't do these things in person.
Are you a fan of film, animation, true stories sometimes based off nothing more than hearsay and faulty human memory? Then hi, I'm Joss from Off the Cutting Room Floor, a bite-sized film history podcast. In Off the Cutting Room Floor, I serve as your humble armchair expert and tell you some of cinema's most fascinating behind-the-scenes stories and legends. Featuring a cast of podcasters, Season 1 takes a close look at the development of the cult-hit musical, Little Shop of Horrors. Off the Cutting Room Floor, a bite-sized film history podcast, can be found on social at OTCRRoomPod, and Season 1, Little Shop of Horrors, can be found on your podcatcher of choice. Music is Always Slept So Soundly by Sarasue.